Welcome to Rappler Talk. I am Ralph Rivas. Ngayong hapon ay pag-uusapan pa rin natin ay ang epekto ng novel coronavirus sa economy. Ngayon ay kasama natin ngayon si Nicholas Mapa, Senior Economist ng ING Bank Manila to discuss more about that. Hi Nicholas, thanks so much for your time.
Salamat, Ralph. Hope everyone's safe sa mga bayan nila. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Okay, so Nicholas, marami ng articles, marami ng stories about just how bad the economy is going to be now and after novel coronavirus. So can you tell us more about how the economy is shaping up and ano ba yung mga dapat pag-usapan at this point?
Totoo yun, Ralph. As we know, yung Philippine economy medyo reliant siya sa consumption side. Yung consumption po ng mga Filipinos is roughly 2/3 of the economy, 67%. Right now, with the community quarantine in place, marami sa atin nasa bahay lang. We can't work, we can't go out. So this will definitely slow down yung consumption natin. We are unable to do the usual malling na ginagawa natin. Shopping now has to be online. Karamihan yata aren't even able to service the demand. So with the community quarantine in place, we're all asked to stay at home and to distance ourselves from one another. This will have a direct impact on the economy. For the meantime, now that we're in quarantine, definitely may negative impact sa growth natin.
And then talks about recession. Can you tell us more about that? Is the recession here? Is this a recipe for a recession? Anong magiging lagay after this?
Well, now that as you mentioned, there are people talking about a recession. I guess globally, dito sa Pilipinas. Technically, yung recession kasi means 2 straight quarters of negative growth. Yung Philippines kasi has been really outperforming the rest of the world and our peers. Close to 6% yung usual natin. Medyo sanay na tayo sa 6%. The slowdown will likely take a big chunk of growth given consumption will be one of the hardest hit. Kaya lang, we still have to realize na kahit nandito tayo sa bahay, nag-grocery pa rin tayo, we still end up shopping, we still end up buying food, stuffs. Kahit pa paano babayaran ko pa rin yung Meralco bill ko, tsaka yung Globe bill, kahit may 1 month delay. But all of this consumption is still happening. 45% of the household consumption basket sa GDP is actually food items. So now that we're still buying yung mga corned beef, dilata, tsaka yung mga instant noodles na binili natin ahead of the quarantine, that's still a lot of consumption that we can see. Although, as noted, yung ibang na sanay tayo na lumabas, sanay tayo kumain sa labas, that's all going to be stopped for now. So definitely going to take a hit. Kaya lang I'm not convinced yet na magkakaroon tayo ng negative growth. Unless, of course, i-extend yung community quarantine. A lot of the growth projections will ride on how long we have to stay indoors. Kasi kung hanggang, let's say, 2 months to, or God forbid, if that's what's needed, that will definitely take its toll on the economy. But once again, if it's for the safety and health of everyone, kailangan talaga gawin natin to.
Do you have figures? Curious lang ako kasi for now, alam natin na 1 month. So in a month, gaano ba kalaki yung losses to? Anong sectors yung apektado talaga?
Okay. Yung ginawa ko, gumawa akong several forecasting runs. In-assume ko na hanggang April yung lockdown. I'm already factoring in an extension ng 2 weeks sa initial ECQ na naka-implement na yun sa Luzon. That would bring growth to, as best case scenario, is at 5.4%. This is if the government really comes up with a talagang malaki yung nilabas nilang fiscal stimulus package. On the other hand, kung let's say hindi masyado gumastos yung gobyerno, wala masyadong nilabas na pera, growth can actually post a negative um, uh, number kung hindi masyado malakas yung fiscal spending. If you extend that by another 2 weeks, we take off roughly about 0.4 percentage points to those figures. So kung humaba pa to, kung hanggang second quarter yung tama ng quarantine sa growth, that will take off of the zero point 0.4 percentage points to your overall growth outlook. And then every quarter that you add, it's roughly about zero point 0.4 percentage points to growth.
Wow, sakit. So, what about sectors? Let's talk about sectors. Ano yung mga pinaka-apektado and any recommendations how they can cope? Ano pwede nilang gawin?
Okay. So the whole reason why we're in this right now is because COVID-19 spreads very easily, very rapidly. So the whole thing that we got us in this mess is because transmission is very lethal and easy. So all the sectors that deal with close contact or interaction between people will definitely get hit. Unang-una, we do know that the possible origin of this is in China. So travel, and in some of the cases that we have here are imported cases. Actually, most of them, all of them are imported cases. So they have had to have some travel history to other countries that have the virus. So the first, I guess the industry that will take the hit first and foremost is the travel industry. Airline industry will take a hit. And before this whole thing started, kumbaga, travel was really one of our major, kumbaga, travel goals and all that. Everyone was leaving the country and foreigners were visiting our beautiful country as well. So that's all going to take a hit. Anything related to airline travel and hospitality and leisure will also take a hit. Mainly because yung tourism industry will likely see less arrivals kung may darating pa. Especially, I mean, of course now wala, but eventually as the world heals, we might see some tourists come over, pero malamang hindi, not the same as before. So hospitality, tourism will take a hit.
Yeah,
Maybe, go
yeah.
ahead.
You mentioned earlier na parang hoping something about recovery after the this lockdown. Pero there are also discussions na this changes everything forever. Na parang it has already changed the way we live and it will continue to change our lives. So do you share a similar view like that? And if so, can you elaborate kung paano how this virus has will change the world forever?
Yes, that's a great point, Ralph. As you noted, COVID is likely going to be a game changer. We will, as soon as this episode or pandemic blows over, we can beat the bug. We will have to adjust to the new normal. Now, as I noted earlier, um, the whole reason why this happened, why it spread so fast, is because of interaction between people. So I think there will be a push for more digital. Like now, we're doing an interview online. Ganun din mangyayari. Like sa nangyayari na yun, work from home din ako na yun. So I do a lot of my output. Now, all of my output can actually be, we've proven na pwede pala gawin sa bahay. So a lot of these meetings that we used to have in the past, face-to-face client interaction will likely, maybe some of that devolves or evolves into digital usage. One other thing that I'm noticing that the push now for digital commerce is much higher. Now, lahat ng binabayaro, I do it with GCash para walang physical changing of hands of money, actual money. Kahit yung credit card, di ko na ginagamit kasi kahit paano sa swipe ko pa rin yan. Hawakan pa ni ate sa cashier. So, digital transactions will likely be the norm, or at least people will start to pick it up. Also, how yeah, interactions will be limited. Maybe travel for a while will be, I guess, not be as prevalent as it was before, um, given how this whole thing developed. Also, I guess more awareness on hygiene. Before, I'm sure not a lot of people took so much time to wash their hands or to stay healthy. Nowadays, we realize that even with all that's happening, lahat ng growth or economic activity that we've had, we sort of forget we're still human, and then we can get sick, and then in some cases we can um, it's fatal. So
Mm.
stay healthy. That's something that we might be prioritizing after in the new normal. Health, and health is better than wealth, definitely.
Mm. Okay, so well, earlier you said na gusto mo pag-usapan yung fiscal stimulus. So now let's talk about that mismo. Saan ba dapat gumastos yung government, and what have they done so far na sa tingin mo ay good moves?
Well, binanggit ko kanina na monetary policy has been doing all of the heavy lifting. Kumbaga, sila lang yung kumakayod to try to keep the economy afloat. If I can just mention that first, the BSP has cut policy rates by 50 basis points. Now, of course, what does that mean to consumers? It means that, kumbaga, if I want to take out a loan, yung interest rate or yung binabayaran kong interest payments will be lower by roughly about 50 basis points. So this makes getting a new loan or investment easier for me. Kaya lang, it doesn't really help most of us nowadays because most of us are at home, so hindi
Yeah,
naman
yeah.
siguro tayo makakakuha ng, we can't invest in anything right now. But eventually, as the economy improves and heals, makakalabas na tayo sa bahay, it's easier for us to take out a loan to cover some of the expenses that we might have down the line. Other things that the BSP have done, they've also, kumbaga, they've in- increased the amount of liquidity in the system. This is good for banks in a way because banks now have more money to lend out to individuals like us or to corporations that might need money. So this should keep them afloat. Hindi sila malulugi because they have access to more funds are available. Now, that being said, kumbaga si BSP tsaka si monetary policy lang kumakayod. We need help from the other sectors as well.
The fiscal side naman.
The fiscal side. I gave an analogy to this,
Mm.
given that it's COVID and everything. So yung Philippine economy now is sick.
Mm.
Kumbaga, it's like we have COVID. So one doctor is giving all the medicines, yung monetary policy. Kaya lang, we also need to keep the patient healthy in terms of rest, in terms of food. Kung hindi siya kumakain, hindi rin siya magsusurvive. So this is where the fiscal policy has to come in and step in. Nowadays, a lot of our Filipino brothers and sisters, yung mga daily wage earners cannot earn a wage right now. So first and foremost, and I think this was mentioned by the president in his address yesterday, income replacement is going to be very, very important. All these people have no means of earning a living right now, so government will have to step in and bridge the gap for that. Um, I think you're mentioning some people are wondering when kung nilabas ng gobyerno yun, say
Yeah, so
nagbigay sila ng cash
so kung
funds.
nagbigay yung halimbawa nagbigay yung government, paano nila mababawi yun, or you know
Okay.
the concept of return of investments. Kasi like, well, kapag gumastos ka, parang you expect something in return. So I think people are wondering na kapag what if binigay lang unconditionally yung perang yun. So what will that how will anong
The
impact dun
government
sa
recovery. Well, for one, it keeps the people alive. So if
Mm,
the government wants to keep this economy running, they have to keep everyone, I guess, with their basic goods and basic necessities. The biggest investment there is that the economy will not collapse. I think
mm,
the whole idea that we heal as one is very important. The economy is where it is today because everyone started to sort of enjoy the benefits of growth from every sector of the society. So if we lose, kumbaga, let's say we can think of it as an engine. Kung kahit big engine, big cog or big gear ka sa machine or small gear ka man lang, if one of those gears or one of those cogs starts to get stuck or doesn't operate as they should, then the whole engine suffers. So we need everyone to be well. We need everyone to be able to still stay alive, consume, and that's why household consumption is so potent because it's enjoyed, I guess, or it happens across the board, across social sectors. So that's the best investment I think the government can do right now is to keep the people alive. And then, yeah, if they do that, then at least they get to another few weeks or a month, so they can, when this all clears up, they can finally find some work. Um,
Mm.
so
So
yeah,
do you have a figure kung magkano ba dapat ang gastusin o matanggap ng kada family? Just wondering.
on per family, I want to be able to give a figure. Although the number I think mentioned last night, 5,000 to 8,000,
Mm.
sounds commensurate. Mainly because you're replacing the daily wage of, let's say, the two heads of the family, or the household. If they're able to replace daily wage for the month or the time period covered, I think that's basically what they should be trying to aim for. Try to replace the at least the minimum wage that they could have earned if they had found work for this time.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about the small businesses or even medium businesses. So, anong pwedeng gawin ng government to help them? Kasi syempre kapag nabigyan mo nga ng, I don't know, 5,000 to 8,000 yung kada family, but they wouldn't have jobs a month or a
Yes.
couple months after. So, how can the government help?
Yeah, this is well, basic formula that we've seen across the globe. Fiscal stimulus packages. First on size, it should be at least 1% of GDP. Hopefully closer to two. Some countries have gone talagang binanata nila. They really supersize their fiscal spending. The US
So,
is roughly about 6% of GDP. Poland is 9% of GDP. But
so
most,
if sa atin 1%, mga magkano yun?
That's 20 trillion economy in Philippines. 20, so roughly about 20, 210 billion is
Hmm.
just kumbaga bare minimum lang yan. So I think it should be closer to 1.5 to 2%, mainly because the main growth engine of the Philippine economy is your consumption base. So keeping that economic consumption going is going to be key to the recovery. So
Hmm.
as I mentioned, it's at least 1% GDP, and it should cover the three main sort of areas. First is income replacement, and we've talked about that. Second is tax forbearance. So this is one thing that the government can do to help businesses, both big and small, to get through this rough patch. Kasi kumbaga they're likely not going to be, they're not operating, so they're not earning. Um, so if they get some tax breaks from the government, that should help at least tide them over. Third is liquidity and loan support. So these three things: income replacement, tax forbearance, and liquidity and loan support. So companies, both big and small, will have to get a lifeline, I think, from the government. Um, this is something that the U.S. Fed is trying to roll out. It's called the Main Street Fund. Main Street meaning, kumbaga, yung hindi yung mga top 100 companies. These are small and medium enterprises that they have to save. So they're setting aside a fund precisely to cater to these small medium enterprises that really are the backbone of this economy. I mean, we talk about yung conglomerates, Ayala, the Seas, but it's really
Kaya
the,
nila yun eh.
yeah,
Mm.
for them, and they have the credit lines.
Mm.
They have all the access to the funding and financing, but it's the SMEs that will likely really need to save. And we don't realize that the SMEs do employ the bulk of our labor force, so we have to
Mm.
save them. Kumbaga, if the BSP, or not the BSP, but if the national government can help set up a fund precisely for SME loan availments, soft loans, to get them through this rough patch, I think malaking bagay yan.
Mm. And then you mentioned three, no? One yung sa
Um,
people, two companies, and then the third one. What's the third one?
well, second is it sort of covers both. It's tax
Okay.
forbearance. Tsaka
Okay.
this
Okay.
should also cover income households. I think
Okay.
Indonesia is one of the things they've rolled out is income tax. I think holiday. Yeah, yeah. They're just trying to
Mm.
ease the tax burden on both corporations and individuals. Pernia came out yesterday with sort of his outline, which I actually kind of like. Yung tawag ko
Mm.
nga dun is the three arrows of Pernia.
Mm.
The three sort of areas or focuses phase one, phase two, phase three.
Mm.
Phase one focuses on your sort of the public
Public health.
medical and health response. So of course, this is helping our frontliners get equipped, providing the necessary I guess venues. They even want to secure hospital beds as fast as they can. PPEs, of course, medicine, protection for the frontliners. Also, getting the public to, I mean, all these programs to get social distancing in practice, washing your hands and all that health benefits. So that's phase one. If you think about it, and then phase two is you're trying to improve your business climate currently to get us through the enhanced community quarantine and then getting us, I guess, business confidence even after. The third arrow is sort of preparing, as you mentioned, for the new normal. We're likely not going to be returned to how our lives were before. I mean, you think about it, even movie theaters might have a hard time kasi pwede pala i-stream through Netflix or anything. So
Mm.
any sort of business that used to cater to all these big gatherings will likely have to evolve to accommodate the change in preference eventually as we get through this. So if you think about the three phases or the three arrows ni Pernia, kumbaga it's also based on time. For phase one is just getting through this whole crisis. Phase two is um, currently in the crisis, and then how do we keep the business confidence up now, and then eventually when we get better. And then third is planning for how things will be after, how our lives will be after yung enhanced community quarantine and the COVID-19 episode.
Mm. So I wanna touch on banks rin kasi parang some are worried na baka magka-problema sa cash, yung mga companies na yung mga maliliit na kumpanya baka hindi makapagbayad. So what's the scenario in banks right now? Parang how are they doing?
I think the BSP's been very talaga busy sila for the past few days, really rolling out a lot of measures. They issued a memorandum trying to get, sort of letting banks know that don't worry about, kumbaga, don't worry so much about yung deadlines so much anymore. They will relax some of the regulations on, yeah, just to make sure that banks can, because right now banks are cash flows are definitely strained or altogether frozen because there's no activity. DSP is basically just saying it's okay, don't worry, wag ka masyadong magpanic because if you need liquidity, we can provide it. Secondly, we will go easy on regulations, making sure that you're up to date. And they're hoping na ipapasa to ng mga bangko sa mga consumers and clients. I think this was, although they can't compel yung banks to do so, but they, kumbaga, nakiusap na lang na, can you please give sa your clients some leeway sa pagbabayad ng mga bills. And I think banks have already stepped up and said, sige, okay lang, 1 month moratorium or 2 month, you can pay your bills 2 months down the line. Utility companies also doing the same. Today I got my phone bill and yun din sinabi nila na I can pay in May instead of the usual April. So companies, I guess realizing na if they force everyone to pay on time, then everyone's gonna have a hard time, and then in the end, di talaga makakabayad.
Mm.
So we really have to heal as one, both physically, health-wise, economy-wise, by understanding that, yeah, yeah, we will have to help each other out in this one. So BSP is taking the lead in that, allowing banks a little more leeway on the liquidity side. I think BSP is trying to tell them, don't worry, maraming pera sa. I mean, they have 12% in triple R. That's a lot of money that they can release anytime the system needs liquidity. They can cut policy rates further. Plus, I think on the regulation side, they're trying to be a little more lax with banks. So hopefully, banks can do the same with their clients. Yeah, don't force them to pay up right away. Maybe have a moratorium as well. Para yeah, para makaahon naman yung mga clients nila.
Okay, so let's just let me wrap this interview. No, so sa tingin mo, ano yung mga dapat pang abangan? What do we need to watch out for? Any global developments? Things that the government must be very careful with? Any parting words?
Wow. I guess yeah. Just hopefully everyone stays safe. Government. I'm really. If there's one thing I'm looking out for, it's the size and scope of the fiscal response. Kailangan talaga gumastos yung gobyerno. Lalo na because all of our in order to replace income that's been lost. Um, the economy basically is in a standstill. The only person or the only sector that can offset all of that right now is the government, and they're going to have to come in, and they have to come in a big way. So hopefully, cooperation from citizenry and the government can realize that they can step in. Kumbaga sila na bahala muna to get the economy across the current crisis that we have. But yes, take care of your people. It's the best investment you can do. So don't worry about making up the money. Don't worry about the credit ratings anymore. Kasi kumbaga, we're likely to run a very substantial deficit. But in this extraordinary times, life should matter more than your fiscal numbers. So hopefully there is a very substantial fiscal response. Size does matter, but on top of that, size, scope, and I guess the targeted sectors, how targeted it is will really matter. So BSP on its sa side naman ng BSP, take care of the banks, make sure there's enough liquidity so that the economy can survive this, and then eventually when things get started again, provide the fertile ground for an economic recovery. But yeah, waiting for that fiscal package. Hopefully it's big enough to get us through this.
Okay, so may binanggit ka kanina. So before I let you go, ipapahabol ko lang yung tanong na parang, debt to GDP. Kasi the government is also planning to loan. I remember Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez saying na as much as $1 billion. Yes. Or I forgot the figure actually. So
about $1 billion.
Yeah. So may planong umutang. So anong impact nito sa debt to GDP? How should the government manage? Yeah,
I think this is where all our hard work to try to get the better credit ratings will pay off. We've worked very hard to convince credit ratings agencies that we're good credit. Makakabayad naman yung Pilipinas. Just that now, I mean, the whole world is in this crisis period. It's not a problem of we're just facing this crisis, so it's not like we can't pay our creditors back. So this is where the credit upgrades will really help. We do have very much improved debt to GDP ratio rating. I think our latest number is 41.8% of GDP. So that's very good from where we were standing just a couple of years ago, na 70%. So we've had a very, very phenomenal improvement in our ability to repay our debt. Philippines is, before this whole thing happened, was one of the best performing countries, economies out there. And if people can look past what's happening now, and I'm sure they can, understandably so, once we get our footing back, kumbaga, we can really get back to where we were, and repayments won't be a problem.
Okay. Thanks so much. That was Nicholas Mapa of ING Bank Manila, and I am Ralph Rivas. Thanks for watching.